Hey, thanks everyone. I apologize, I'm a little bit hoarse. I just traveled from Thailand to come speak, so I lived there about half the year up in Chiang Mai and down in Koh Samui. So the presentation today is called Why Inflation is Not the Enemy. And if somebody could bring me up the clicker, that'd be awesome. So before I get started, I want to see who I'm talking to here. I personally lived in Raleigh for 10 years and graduated from NC State with computer and electrical degrees. Is any other Wolfpack fans here? Yeah. All right. Yeah, come on, give me some howls. Yeah. All right, how about Tar Heels? And any Duke fans? All right, we got a couple. So I'm going to take you on a journey today. It's my personal story, actually, so it's very near and dear to my heart. Before I get started, just real quick, engineering degrees from NC State. I left, I'll go into this later, I left my engineering career to go to offshore banking. I felt very, very passionate about economics, and inflation at that time was my enemy, so I quit an engineering career to join Euro Pacific Bank, which is a startup bank run by Peter Schiff, if any old gold and silver people here. So I joined Peter Schiff at his bank when it was just a startup. And then the longer I was working at the bank, and I was trying to figure out what created personal freedom for me. And was it following Ron Paul? Was it marching on Washington? Was it writing my politicians? What was it? And I figured out that it was entrepreneurship. And so Liberty Entrepreneurs Podcast was born as to give me a platform to try to interview my fellow entrepreneurs. I mean, I was just an aspiring entrepreneur at the time, to try to get their story about what they're doing and how they got passionate about it and how it's building freedom for them. I'm pushing that hashtag build freedom. Then I became an entrepreneur myself. I have a virtual assistant business, Liberty Virtual Assistants, where I help those same digital entrepreneurs hire experienced and low-cost staff in the Philippines. And then my most recent project, and I'm very pleased to have my CTO here, for Steam Smarter. It's a blockchain analytics service that runs on top of the Steam blockchain. But this is not about me. This is about a pain. And the pain it's 2007 and 2008, I'm sure all you can remember it. I was working up on Airport Boulevard at Slick Edit, small software company, and the crash happened. And I lost 50% of my 401k. And I was a young guy at the time, I was about 25 years old. And it frightened me. I had no clue what it was. I'd worked years, getting these engineering degrees and then working as an engineer for years, and just within a couple of weeks I could lose 50% of my 401k. That was my life savings. I didn't have anything other than I paid off my student loans. And so to me, I was really hurt by that, and I didn't know what to do. And so I decided that it wasn't going to happen to me again. Somebody knew something in the market, and they knew when to sell, and I didn't know. And now I'm sitting on 50% losses. And of course, what did I do? I sold the bottom and went to cash. And I don't think I've ever been to the stock market again. Back then I was hungry for truth, and I was hungry to change things. I started understanding, that the dollar had infinite inflation. We didn't know how much they're printing. We don't know what they're doing with it. And I started understanding gold and silver, listening to Ron Paul. I don't know, did anybody pay attention to his 2007 and 2008 presidential campaign? All right, we got a couple, thank you. And so I became obsessed with listening to this guy, because it was the first adult that I felt like really told me the truth. And it was definitely the first politician that I didn't think was just trying to sell him or herself to get elected right on the dole. And so I got introduced to Austrian economics and the gold standard, and learned about Nixon when he took us off the gold standard in the 70s because the U.S. couldn't pay its debts anymore to the world. And then all of a sudden, the entire world was in this inflationary, all boats rising, race to the bottom type of scenario, where countries were hungry to depreciate their value because they're told by some stupid Keynesian economist that this is how you make an economy strong, is by spending. So one day I was listening to, and I know I'm talking fast, I'm the guy between you guys and the open bar apparently, so I will have time for some questions at the end. But so I was listening to Peter Schiff. Has anybody heard of Peter Schiff here? Cool. So I used to listen to his podcast, his daily show, every single day. And it was the best part of my day. I've got some of my colleagues from Slick Edit days that they know. And I would listen to this guy every day, because what Ron Paul was to me, the truth in politics, at that time Peter Schiff was the truth in economics. And so it made a lot of sense to me, and stuff started really lining up. So one day on his show, he said, I'm looking for some people to move down to the Caribbean and help me build an offshore bank. And he was railing on the U.S. regulations about how it was too difficult and no longer profitable for him to satisfy, to serve his non-U.S. clients. And so he had like 50,000 non-U.S. leads. And we were going to open the offshore bank and the offshore brokerage account and service his international clientele that he couldn't do in the States. And that was the idea, so I did. I quit my job. And it was for commission only, too. This is the first time I joined a startup. I was, an engineer. I was working technical support. And it was really scary, but I was confident that my understanding of gold specifically and the economic system, and now my new understanding of, excuse me, what happened in the crash, I understood the interest rates, are too low, so it drives up real estate prices. And I was really starting to figure this out, and I joined the bank to change it from the inside, to change the banking system from the inside. Because we were what's called a Rothbardian bank or a libertarian bank. We're a transactional only bank, so we didn't make any loans with your money. And I really bought into that. I really bought into that because at that time I learned that the government prints as much money as they want, they send it to whomever they want, and then we pay for it out of the depreciating dollars that we hold in our pockets, right? And so this was one of the world's biggest pains for me. I was joining the bank to help people preserve their wealth in gold and silver, physical gold and silver bank accounts so they can opt out basically of the fiat, or at least have a bank that's not going to loan your money. And that was the idea. So we knew that liquidity was an issue for gold, so we had this debit card, this gold-backed debit card, that it's a MasterCard. People can sell their gold in their account and fund up their card, and man, you can go spend it anywhere MasterCard's accepted. And we store the physical here. I'm no longer with the bank. I resigned as head of business development last year, just for the record. So here we are down in the Caribbean, and we're trying to help. We're trying to show people there's a way that you can protect yourself from this inflation. Right? You don't have to be forced into this economic system that they can print at will. You're never going to audit the Fed, come on. And they're not going to show you what they're doing with your money. And so this was the goal. I was going to join the banking system, the international banking cartel, if you will, and I was going to change it from the inside. And this seemed reasonable because I just thought that we could vote in Ron Paul and change Washington from the inside, but you can't do it. I mean, look at this. This is ridiculous. These are Valcondi bars. This was one of our solutions to the liquidity issue. Since you're not going to go and buy, use an ounce of gold to buy something, you could break off these little 50 grams, all like a little chocolate bar. And we literally try to sell this stuff. This is before I got into cryptocurrencies. This was back in 2012. And this is where St. Vincent is. I didn't even know where it was whenever I signed up to live there, but this is where it's at. And it's very intimidating going into a culture where you don't understand anything, and they speak the same native language, English, as I did, the Vincentians, but with such a strong and thick Caribbean accent that I couldn't understand. And by the way, what's up, y'all? It feels so good to say y'all again and not have people look at me like I'm funny. I was going to say I can come here and not sound funny, but now I've got this hoarse throat from traveling from Thailand, so I still sound funny. But anyways, that's where St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It was I lived there for a year. It's very, very interesting. If you haven't submerged yourself into a place where you don't know or fit in at all, I definitely recommend you do that. It's very humbling. I didn't like it that every time I went into town, they thought I was a Secret Service agent because I was the only white guy there. But all right, so let's get some definitions. As a philosopher, I have to have definitions to make sure we're on the same page communicating. So what is inflation? It's the increasing of the money supply. It is the money printing. You're inflating the money supply like you're inflating a balloon full of air. Rising prices is an effect of that newly minted currency. It just makes sense that if they print more, the prices have to go up to reach that equilibrium. And nearly all currencies, fiat and crypto and precious metals, are inflationary. Now, I know there's some that give 100% pre-mine, like Augur and stuff like that. In the crypto space, they don't have any inflation, but they are very, very rare. Bitcoin, as much as a lot of people don't want to admit, is still inflating at over 4% per year in new Bitcoin tokens at the moment. And that varies between all other types of cryptocurrencies. So why did I think inflation was the enemy? And it was the enemy. It was such my enemy that I decided to quit a very successful engineering career and move to the Caribbean to work for commission only for a guy that I'd listened to for about 3 years on the podcast, on his daily radio show. Because inflation was the enemy because it was a monopoly. The government's basically had a monopoly on money creation. We didn't get to print our own money, our community money. And yeah, we had one in Cary, and I think they have one in Asheville or something like that. But it's on such a small scale that if you try to compete with the government, does anyone remember the Liberty Dollar during Ron Paul's presidential campaign? That guy got thrown in prison. It's also not transparent. It's printed in secret. It's not open source. Could you imagine if the U.S. government today tried to release the U.S. dollar as an ICO? And they were like, unlimited cap, we're not going to tell you how many we get, we're not going to tell you who we're sending it to, guaranteed devaluation, get it while it's hot. Inflation was the enemy because it wasn't voluntary. It was force-based. I'm an anarchist, right? I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I believe that all human relations should be voluntary. And this is what made government inflation my enemy. And it devalued the purchasing power of our savings. And this hurts the poor among all of us the most. If you can invest in real estate, you can hedge against the government's money printing because you figure out the system, but poor people can't do that. So I was on a mission. Well, here we get right. Inflation rate unknown. The beneficiaries are the government and their friends, 100%. No open ledger. Impossible audit. Proof of politician. You work your entire life for something they can print at will. Talk about holding a bag. Right? Yao Ming is not impressed. All right, let's keep going. I forget. I really rail on the government the first couple slides here. So I was living in Bali, Indonesia. I know I've talked to a couple of you. You've been there. And this was a bill for lunch, just standard lunch, not anything crazy. And it was 412,000 rupiah. And I had to carry this shit around with me. Right? I mean, look at this. There's 100,000 notes. Those pink ones are 100,000 notes. There's some 5,000s in the back, a couple of 2,000s. Steve knows what I'm talking about. You carry a whole pocket. It looks like you've got a big bag of something in there, but it's just money. And it's just $30. And then everybody knows Zimbabwe dollars. These guys are the kings of printing their economy back into prosperity. I really like this picture. It shows the 1 to the 100 trillion. Is that right? 100 trillion? Yeah, so I'm sure I'm not the first trillionaire you guys have met. All right, let's talk about cryptocurrencies. Now we've got blockchain, we've got cryptocurrencies. We still have inflation, but it's voluntary this time. And what does that mean when it's voluntary? Well, we are free to pick which economic system we want to support now. We get to pick our monetary tribe, our economy. And in Bitcoin, it's currently at 4% inflation per year, and the miners get 100% of it. All right, so basically this rewards people who can find the cheapest electricity and who can put together the hardware and software package to actually successfully connect and mine Bitcoin. For me personally, I don't want to pay 100% of the new tokens that get created in my economy to just the miners to secure the network. So I don't hold any Bitcoin. I haven't for quite some time. So one interesting thing came that really started revolutionizing my idea of inflation was Dash. I found out about Dash back when it was Darkcoin. And when they rebranded to Dash, I interviewed Evan Duffield on my podcast. It was like number 9. I think Dash is at like $1. I wish I'd have bought back then, but it was so interesting to me because inflation was no longer used. Remember, new money printing is inflation. So the new money that gets printed was no longer just used for mining, which is a very valuable thing in a blockchain. If you're a proof of work blockchain, of course you have to have mining. You need that security. And with Dash, it currently has about an 8% inflation rate per year. Okay, not nearly as bad as the US government, as much as they'll tell you, it's only 2%. But twice as much as Bitcoin. But it becomes very interesting because even though inflation is at twice the rate as Bitcoin, do you think that how that inflation is being used is going to be a net positive for the Dash economy? Some of their payout, I think it's 45% for mining, 45% for masternodes. These are the people who stake 1,000 Dash, and now they have voting power in the Dash ecosystem. They can vote up or down code changes. They can vote up or down treasury proposals, kind of like the worker proposals in the EOS or the worker proposals in BitShares if we have some delegated proof of stake people here. And then 10% for their community treasury. And this is the part that really helped me understand the power of voluntary inflation. 10% of all the inflation that Dash has per year, per any period of time, gets deposited in a super block, and that super block comes and funds their treasury. And people can write in. I think I have, I don't have it. People can write in and say, hey, I want you to sponsor my podcast. Amanda B. Johnson is really well known by being the Dash girl or whatever, but she created a podcast about the same time I created Liberty Virtual Assistants, but she was a lot smarter than I was, and went and approached the Dash community with a treasury proposal. And she got funded, and back then Dash was at like $20 or $15, and she got a ton of Dash, and then went to the moon, and like really good for her because she could see something that most of the rest of us couldn't see and couldn't understand. I was still fighting inflation, and she was using it to her benefit. So people write in for all sorts of stuff on Dash. They have university sponsorships and partnerships. They reach out and do outreach to Venezuela. So, then I became familiar with Steam. Has anyone not heard of Steam at this point, I guess? Man, we've come a long ways.
I have not. Please.
Okay, Steam is a social media blockchain. Basically, it's like a WordPress that's run on a blockchain. So anytime that you write in a new blog, you have 7 days to get upvoted. Well, when you get upvoted in Steam, unlike on Facebook or traditional social media platforms, there is a dollar price associated with your upvote. And so for me, I think I have like 40,000 Steam or something. If I upvote someone, then I'm telling the blockchain to allocate inflation, the new money, the new Steam tokens, to this person that wrote this blog post. So if you're a scuba diver and you're writing all about scuba diving, and I'm passionate about this, but maybe I don't get to go diving as much as you do, then you'll write your blog post, and I'll see them, and you have videos and pictures, and I'll upvote you, and you get rewarded financially in cryptocurrency payouts for the blog post that you're writing. I think this is the revolution that we're seeing in social media 3.0, and it really invigorates me to dig in here and show that people can get paid for the content they create online. The days of you offering yourself and selling your information but not receiving anything in return, I think are coming to an end. I like the saying, if you're going to sell out, at least get paid for it. Right now you're selling out every day on Twitter or Facebook or all these legacy social media sites that they offer you a free platform to express yourself, but you don't see any financial gains from it. And with cryptocurrency, it makes that really easy. And so in Steam, their witnesses, basically their block producers or their miners, get paid out part of the inflation. The content creators, those that spend time writing content or recording content, get paid 75% of the inflation. And then the curators, so the people who are upvoting your post, the people who are sharing your post, the people who are commenting on your post, they also share part of that payout. So you can literally get paid to just hang out on social media all day. Now, I don't know if it's the best use of your time, but you might as well try. I mean, this is the first time this has ever happened. Steam was the first blockchain-based social media platform. I think we're going to see dozens. We already see one coming out of China called Ono, O-N-O. They already have 250,000 active users. They're just incorporating a blockchain to now initiate and start paying out. So if you believe in an economy and a digital community that incentivizes and rewards content creation, well, maybe Steam is where you can allocate some of your capital and start building your reputation. And again, it's just voluntary. If you think all the articles on Steam are garbage, then you just voluntarily don't send any of your capital, and you're not pushing the price up, and you're not supporting what they're doing. I'm going to go over here. I see my time. This is some examples. Look, and it's not just like nerds writing about cryptocurrency on Steam. It's real people around the world writing about real things. I snapped this a couple days ago. This is somebody writing about Mississippi's best hiking and backpacking. Cool. I don't, that's awesome. Look, he has made $245 from this blog post. And here's another one, some temple somewhere. And meme for thought. I mean, man, I love memes. But people are getting paid out every single day by writing and being part of a community online which appreciates writers and content creators. This is a guy named Ben Dollars. He's from Nigeria. And one day I stumbled upon his Introduce Me post. And it's him and his family celebrating that he just cashed out $5 from Steam. $5, right? Think about that. And so I went through and I upvoted every single thing I could find and sent him like $50. This is not coming out of my own account. This is just me buying in and being able to influence where the new inflation goes because I'm part of the community. And so now this guy had made $5 and he turns around and he's made like $50 because he posts every day. And I worked in the offshore banking system. You couldn't send this guy a wire, especially for $5. I was the guy that was telling you couldn't do what I wanted to be able to do myself. And so my goal once I realized what cryptocurrency, the power of cryptocurrency in 2013, it's like one of my points in life to make my old job redundant and not necessary. And me being able to send $5 or $50 to this guy for free on the Steam blockchain because I appreciate what he's writing is, for me, revolutionary. And you can see this is where I went down and started uploading all this stuff. This is something really cool too. But since we now have the freedom to opt in or opt out of these economic communities, we get to see what each other stands for. These are two accounts on Steam that every time you upvote their posts, they take their rewards and don't cash them out and go buy dinner with them. They cash them out and buy trees and plant trees, right? In Cameroon and Peru. If this is something you're down with, buy the Steam tokens, stake them, and then start upvoting these guys. And you're literally helping build forests around the world. These are some cool decentralized apps that are being built on Steam. And I'm not a representative for Steam. I do own Steam. And you can go Ashe Oro on Steam and see exactly how much I own. But D-Mania is, it's a decentralized platform that runs on top of Steam that's built just for memes. So if you're a content creator but you love memes, then make your memes and post them there. And people who are looking for memes go to D-Mania and it's just memes. You filter out everything else. D-Sound is a decentralized SoundCloud. And you get free IPFS file storage because they take 25% of your rewards. You can get so creative with this stuff. We don't know what's going to be built. The government for too long has been able to build their community and to build their economy with their inflation. And now it's finally our time. We can start doing this now. DTube is decentralized YouTube, as you would imagine. Nobody's going to take this down. It's no central point of failure. Zapple is decentralized Twitter. Utopian.io is an open source project that you post on Steam and you say, hey, this is the open source project I'm trying to write. And people either vote you up and you make the money to spend your time doing it, or they don't vote you and nobody wants it. So my favorite blockchain at the moment is EOS. I think that it gives us the best opportunity to build freedom for ourselves as entrepreneurs. It does it in a way of free transactions. And I know there's no free transactions, but how do the transactions get paid for? Well, inflation. Here we go again, right? EOS, unlike Ethereum, who forces you to pay gas, EOS, the inflation is generated, and up to 1% of the overall inflation goes to block producers. So these are basically data centers, big server centers, and there's maybe 180 of them around the world, and 21 of them get voted in. And so now the inflation comes out to pay our miners, and we get free transactions on the EOS blockchain, which just launched a couple days ago. Super exciting. But you also, so you get access to this stuff. You can stake your tokens. an EOS and get access without charge to hard drive space, to RAM, to network, to throughput, to processing power. And the inflation continues to go, you don't get it, but that's how you pay for stuff. So you don't have to worry about paying for gas fees and trying to do all this token management that you have to on like Ethereum, for instance. And I'm not here to say any bad things about Ethereum. But the inflation here is used for the community treasury, just like Dash. Like, for instance, I'm thinking about starting a conference, and I'm not here to pitch anything. I don't have anything to sell. But I want to start an EOS-specific conference. And if the community thinks that's a good idea, I could write in a treasury request to the EOS community, which I'm a part of, and see if they would fund me. If this is something that's in demand for the community that they think could create value, more value than the tokens that they're allowing me to take, if they think that it can create more value in our community, then it's a win-win for everyone. And so this is what's got me really excited. Inflation wasn't the enemy. Inflation wasn't the enemy. It was the monopoly on money creation and the force associated with being forced into this economic model where we were never or hardly ever the beneficiaries of inflation. We always held the bag. And so when inflation becomes voluntary, whenever we have a ton of competition, when you can see it directly benefiting you, and when you can have your savings continue to appreciate even with additional new tokens coming into the system because the intelligent uses of inflation, then when I understood that, that's why I changed my mind. So, yeah, wrapping up here, guys. I know it's almost near 30, but benefits purposeful action. Because since you have a choice, you get rewarded by studying this stuff and investing your time, your capital, and your energy into systems that you think are good. That's purposeful action. Inflation can be used in so many ways, and economists are going to research these next 10 years for the next 100 years and see how we updated our entire economic models and how we're starting to use inflation. You can use it to secure your network. You can use it to incentivize community engagement. It aligns interest. If everyone's a content creator, it's going to align interest. It's just so wonderful that it's opt-in, opt-out now. I like using that term, by the way, and I encourage you to use it. Opt-in, opt-out economics. So, I'd like you to take away from this that inflation's not bad. Inflation can actually help you build freedom and build your own personal freedom, but it takes a lot of learning. You got to dig in and understand, learn some Austrian economics and ignore the part where they're always talking about inflation as the enemy, because I'm here to tell you the next 10 years is going to revolutionize not only our money, but how we use our money to grow and support our communities through voluntary inflation. Thank you so much.